honest paycheck, a seasoned book, and a set of wheels. A flash of your eye from across the party, a quiet life. Give me the news and an honest paycheck, a seasoned book, and a set of wheels. A flash of your eye from across the party, a quiet life. An open door, an open door, an open
Long hours, sore fingers, the melody lingers. First tune, beaming smile, feel the style. Calloused hands, stiff wrist, getting the gist. First riff, eyes wide, glowing pride. Long hours, no money, like running through honey. First gig, show time, sunshine.
my children to live a life like mine. So I faced my inner demons, one small step at a time, one small step at a time. I was a boy without belonging, a jigsaw piece that didn't fit. If someone shouted out the answer, then you know I didn't hear it. You know I didn't hear it. I'm not the man, I'm not the man I used to be. Gone are the days when all I could see was myself in the mirror, trying to break free, trying to break free. It's taken many years of feeling all alone, so many years of emptiness with no place to call a home, no place to call a home. Now I'm feeling so much stronger as my demons walked away. I think they finally realized they had nothing more to say, nothing more to say. I'm not the man, I'm not the man I used to be.
So with Street Cones, we say that it's not what you've done, it's what you can become. We use arts to help facilitate that road to change.
Like a dream from a wishing well, my trawler eyes take everything in while I'm walking down the snake path, like a hypnotist under a spell. A break from the sadness, disconnection from madness. I leap from the noise, relief in the shadows, crying out for more, like a hungry child full of life. A mishandled smiles, blown away like the flame of a candle out again, deafened by silence, fragile and lonesome again. A break from the sadness, disconnection from madness. I leap from the noise, relief in the shadows. There's a hush to destroy. I leap from the noise.
Hello everybody, welcome to Street Cones Road to Change live stream. This is our second or third one, fourth one maybe. We're losing count now, we're doing so many. But this one tonight is a special one. We're interviewing a kind of friend of Street Cones, somebody that we've had some work with before, somebody who has a history of offending behaviour, which he's very open about, but somebody who has managed to turn that offending behaviour into very much a positive in terms of getting ex-offenders and vulnerable individuals into work through unlocked employment down in Govan. Literally hundreds of people breaking the stigma of ex-offending and getting back into work. So we're going to kind of just have a very open chat. Without further ado, oh, and by the way, please stay in touch with us as you always do. This is going out via Facebook, YouTube, and Vimeo. So leave your comments, send us your questions for Gerry or for myself or about Street Cones, and we will answer them. But it's going to be a fun chat. So come on in, Gerry. Come into the live stream room. How you getting on?
Yeah, we're good. Thanks for inviting me on. I really do appreciate it. I will be honest, it's going to be a bit new for me with regards doing this kind of concept. And
You're a
as
good
much as
talker, Gerry.
I could talk, but I know I could talk, but It's the first time I've done something like this, but so thanks, and I'm really looking forward to it. Although some of the
Good.
questions I think you've kind of said to me, I'm like,
I've given you some fun questions. Well, my thinking was, so we run these Road to Change workshops, as you know, with 13 local authorities across Scotland. Since the pandemic, pre-pandemic, we were in jails and in young offenders institutes and working with youngsters at risk of offending. And we were in person doing these kind of workshops. And obviously the pandemic came along, so they all went online. And we're now 13 local authorities working with people in community payback orders. So we're working with people that probably are going to maybe come from us over to you as they,
that's
journey
good.
back to employment. But the workshops
Definitely.
are creative workshops. So we're building stories, we're building scripts with them, and they have the same structure across the country, and that the first half is kind of creative games. The whole premise being that creativity is good for everybody's mental health, self-esteem, well-being, communication, employability skills, etc. And our argument is that they're as valuable as other unpaid work. It's valuable they're out picking litter. It's valuable they can go and paint fences and help community centres and build picnic tables. It's also valuable that they can build stories and get involved in narratives, because at the end of all these workshops, after about 12 weeks, the guys are performing these plays online, and most of them, in fact 99% of them, have never done anything like this before. So it's pretty groundbreaking stuff. So I thought tonight's chat with you will have it a wee bit like a Road to Change workshop. So we always start with something a bit fun. So everybody who's watching, I put on out on social media today, we start every workshop with a riddle. So the idea is, don't answer now and do not Google this, but okay, let it think, just let the back of the brain think about this one. In fact, I'll maybe give two, because I put the one out today. So what comes once in a minute, twice in a moment, but never in 1,000 years? What comes once in a minute, twice in a moment, but never in 1,000 years? The idea is, now, when I first was working with that, it came to me 3 days later when I was brushing my teeth, which is kind of how creativity works. If you're really forcing it, it never works. But if you forget about it, boom, it'll come up when you least expect it. So that was one I put out on social media today. So we'll have another one for the purposes of tonight, Gerry. So this is for you and everybody who's watching, listening. Misha and Marjorie are born at the same time, in the same hospital, to the same mother and father, but they are not twins. How is that possible? Misha and Marjorie are born at the same time, same minute, same hospital, same mum and dad, but they are not twins. How is that possible? So we'll let that one I can see your brain. I can already hear the cogs working,
Yeah,
Gerry.
definitely. Yeah,
I've got
a couple answers, but
I'm gonna get that. So what answers do you think? Give me a couple.
I was going to say conjoined twins, but that's a twin, isn't it?
Yeah, they're twins. They're not twins. They're something else.
Yeah.
I mean, they're obviously not born at exactly the same time. Like any twins, one's going to come out before the other. But yeah, so it's one to think about. And I'm sure we've got Mark at Street Cones in the background handling all the social media and the comments via Facebook, YouTube, and Vimeo. So they'll probably start firing in. We can look at them at the end. So listen, some of the fun things that we start away is at the start with our chats with, what's your favourite takeaway food?
Oh, KFC, chicken.
KFC.
Chicken, I like chicken. Yeah, chicken. I just eat chicken all the time. It's all I eat.
Fair dues. You're being sent to a desert island. You can take one item, one book, one film, and a person with you. And that person can be alive or dead, a historical figure or a living figure.
Well, the movie would have to be Star Wars. It's just the best movie ever made.
Such a good movie.
Yeah, it's just a film. The book, my favorite ever book, it's part of a series, is actually called Interview with a Vampire by Anne Rice.
Yeah.
It was a book that I read when I was about 16, 17, and it kind of changed my life, to be honest with you.
Wow.
It was actually, yeah, it didn't change my life. It changed my, it's kind of weird when I'm a straight guy. I've always been straight, but it was actually about gay vampires, which it doesn't really come across so much in the movies and that, but the relationship was a love story between them. And I just thought it was amazing. And it kind of, as a 16-year-old boy living in Glasgow at the time, it was who grew up during the 80s, where all you heard about gay people was AIDS and dying and adverts and things like that. And then I read this book, and I didn't realize that that's what the premise of the book was. And when I read it, it just was like, so that kind of, it was an eye opener for me personally, and it was fantastic, and it was a phenomenal book.
Yeah.
I don't know about one person alive. Tony Benn actually has always been a. We're just talking about politics and stuff like that. I would have loved to have had a chat with Tony Benn. Actually, I think he just would have been fascinated to sit and talk to him. Just about the stuff that he was involved in during the 60s and 70s and 80s within the political movements.
Yeah, he is a legend, isn't he? Absolute legend. Not so sure about his son politically. I'm sure he's a lovely guy.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The apple seemed to have fallen quite far from the tree.
Very far from the tree. Very far from the tree. But yeah.
But yeah, I remember the film because it was Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt.
Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, yeah. And even back then, I mean, even back then, it was Anne Rice didn't want Tom Cruise cast. See, I know so much about this. It's just, and not a lot of people realise this about me. And but then when the movie came out, she absolutely adored him in the movie. And Brad Pitt in it as well and stuff like that. But there was there's quite a few books on it, and it's amazing. It's just amazing story.
It's funny, I should revisit that film. I remember when it came out. I was in college at the time. I think I was in college at the time. So that's 20. It's got to be about 25 years old then, that film.
Yeah, the movie came out in the early 90s. I was reading the books roughly about the end of the 80s kind of thing. Yeah, it's just again, it was like it was something that I read that I didn't think it was going to take me to where it took me. Yeah. And then when I was reading it, I was like, Jesus, this is what the hell is this about two guys falling in love? And rather than just thinking, I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was a phenomenal. I just thought it was a love story. It was just natural. So it was kind of that idea within it was just.
Yeah. Nice one. Okay, this is one of my favorite questions is, if you had a superpower, what would it be and why?
Oh, flying, just, like Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just flying, just being able, the power to fly would be it. I'd be gone.
I'm torn between flying and invisibility.
Yeah.
I love the idea.
I think I'd get into trouble if I was doing invisibility.
I think we'd all get into trouble, but nobody would know.
Nobody would know. Yeah, I like the idea that if you just want to go, you can just go. You can just jump up and just go. That's it for me. And travel at the other side of the world. Definitely flying for me. Tell me
about. We've chatted a lot about your kind of history. So, tell us a wee bit about. It was just fascinating talking to you earlier. This idea that you're now on the Queen's Honours List. You have been awarded a British Empire Fellowship and
British Empire Medal, yeah.
British Empire Medal. But 10 years ago, you were stealing the Queen's mail, and 10 years later, you're getting honoured from the Queen. So tell us about your journey, because that's a fascinating one for people to hear.
So I worked for. I left school when I was 16 on a Friday, and I joined Royal Mail on the Monday, back when that was quite easy to do, that kind of thing, and I was a postman, done deliveries, worked in the mail centres, worked up in Springburn actually, and then I moved to Birmingham, met a girl, and as you do, you move for the person that you fall in love with. She was pregnant, and I ended up in Birmingham working. And I decided when I was in Birmingham that I was going to take a stab at becoming a manager, because obviously a new baby was born and all of that. So I became a manager in Birmingham, and it was amazing. It was just absolutely probably one of the best jobs I've ever had. I absolutely loved it. But then I started. I was in a bit of debt at one point, just with a young family and stuff like that, and I started stealing credit cards. Again, I don't try and hide it. I don't feel there's any need to hide it, and just understand it. And it carried on for quite a while. I actually had left Royal Mail, and I had got a job with DPD, which is the German post office. I was kind of headhunted. And I had a thing. And then I get the police came through my door, and I was arrested, and they found loads of credit cards, and I was prosecuted. And I was expecting 5 years actually. And eventually my barrister was a good barrister, got 18 months. I got it down to 18 months. So,
And-
yeah.
Yeah, so and can you talk about then your early life? Because like one of the questions that comes up a lot in our work and in this field is like, is it inevitable based on your background? Was there an inevitability that you would end up engaging in offending behaviour, or was it circumstance? Was it,
It's interesting because I just, obviously catching sight of the question you sent me through. One of them was, what's your earliest memory? And my earliest memory, I grew up in Castlemilk, went up till about the age of 8 or 9. And my earliest ever memory was my mum dragging me to the police station because I stole a bar of soap from the chemist when she was in the chemist. And I don't know why. It must have been about 4 or 5. I must have been about 5, I think, because it's a clear memory of me. Remember going to the police station. Remember my mum being absolutely furious with me. I was in tears, and obviously it was about a traumatic incident that happened. And I never had any like offending history really from that early age onwards to be that I was ever going to be in trouble. I was the quietest boy you'd ever meet in the world. I just really wasn't. Not the person, obviously, who you are as a youngster. So, and I was never in trouble. I wasn't a fighter. I wasn't anything at all like that. So and my mum was we grew up as a single parent quite a lot. And so my mum done her best to obviously bring us up right and keep us in the straight and narrow. My dad, on the other hand, he was what we call potentially an old school gangster from Glasgow, who was very much involved with violence and very much involved with drug dealing. Although I never grew up with my dad, but when I met my dad when I was 16, he kind of showed me that side of life up in the north side of Glasgow. And he done it, he said, in order to keep me away from it. And it did. It kind of scared me shitless, to be honest with you, if I looked at it. But I then went on to have a career within Royal Mail, and I was what we call a worker. I was never involved in anything like that. So when I went into my offending behaviour, and it went on for years, went on for quite a while, what I was doing. I don't put a rational explanation behind why I did it. And I'm quite open sometimes when I tell it to people, it was greed. It was greed. I done it to get money and to get goods and to get that. Whereas and I'm quite open with that rather than try to blame my past or whatever. And it's I don't look inwardly a lot to go to blame it. I actually just do it as it was just something that I did and it was wrong, and I get caught and I get punished. But then it led me on to a different life. It led me on to a completely different life after that.
Can you talk a wee bit for the people listening? We with a lot of, say, especially the young people that we work with, there's a feeling for them that it's inevitable that it'll go to Pullman, and then from then, I don't know, Bar L, or one boy I remember talking, he was saying, he wouldn't mind becoming a carpenter. And we were driving back from a residential trip that we were on, and he just said, but obviously I have to go to Pullman first. And I remember thinking, you're joking, and he was like deadly serious. He just thought that was a natural progression. For him, it was just like, I don't know, probably like for some kids going to uni, he just felt, that's where the step in, because that's what his environment and his upbringing has kind of taught him, I suppose. But there's also, for some of them, they feel like it's a badge of honor and there's a bit of a bravado about it. And so I'm always keen. In fact, there's a film that we're making at the moment for Street Cones, looking at the realities versus the myths of offending and crime and prison sentences. So could you talk a wee bit about what it was like for you when you were in jail, those early, when you entered through court into the early days of prison, and how you managed yourself and your mental health through your sentence? What was that like?
So I was in my 30s. I was in my early to mid 30s when I went into prison, and it was in Birmingham. It wasn't Glasgow when I went into prison, and it was absolutely, it was like a scene from an American movie. It was like guys on bars. It was just completely and utterly terrifying, to be honest with you. But it was like, because I went into Blakenhurst, which is H&P Huel at the moment now it's called, but I was lucky because I kind of got my, excuse my language, but I got my shit together pretty quick, and I kind of realised that that you couldn't fall over, you couldn't go under. So I kind of, there were certain things I learned in prison straight away. Was all about things like eye contact, making sure that you're not looking, is it something very silly, but I've told quite a few people the story about it, about, I went for a shower every morning. I get out my cell every morning and went straight for a shower. And when you went into the showers, it was predominantly, because in Birmingham it was the multicultural side of it. Was, there was a massive black and Asian guys in it, and then with white guys in it as well. So when you're kind of walking into a shower and it's like full of everybody, you're not making a statement at that point, but you're kind of being like, well, I'm not scared to come out, and go and get clean, because the guys that I saw that were getting bullied in prison, or the guys that I saw that were, some of the scenes that you see are just horrendous. Other guys that didn't take care of themselves, didn't take care of their personal hygiene. They were either using drugs, they were doing that. I didn't. I made sure, I kind of clocked it straight away. You keep yourself clean, you keep yourself straight, and that's what you do, because if you don't, you were going to get set upon straight away. You're going to get bullied, and I have a lot of conversations with people about that side of prison, that people think that it's like that all the time, and it's not. But there's a lot of it that clearly goes on, and I saw. I mean, what was surprising for me was that I saw a lot of youngsters coming in from the young offenders. I think it's in Wolverhampton that they were coming into the mainstream prison from the Wolverhampton prisons, and I watched the youngsters. Some of the youngsters fall over pretty quickly. Some of the youngsters that were, they could handle themselves and they were fine, but there was lots of youngsters that came in straight away, and you could see that they were getting bullied, and they were getting picked off. They were getting picked off when they walked into a mainstream prison, and that was scary, but not scary for me. But it was scary to watch and to see and to understand it. And I've got a little story about somebody that I met in my time afterwards when I went into employability. Because when I went into employability after from prison, I met a lot of guys that I'd served time with. And that's what drove me to set up an unlock employment. It's kind of a different part of it. But yeah, prison on that side of it was it's I watch youngsters. I think I spoke to you earlier about relationship breakdowns. People don't talk about it, about how much of an impact of partners splitting up, which that happens all the time. But then there's the being away from your children, being away from your kids. I heard lots of stories, and I spoke to lots of guys where the mothers wouldn't bring the kids into prison, and I watched the after effects of that, where guys walk away from visits, and they're having to deal with that within prison cells. I had one guy that was in my pad that he couldn't deal with it. I watched even when I went into open prison, guys that just they couldn't deal with being away for so long, and the whole turn into drugs. 10 years ago, before the spice epidemic came
Yeah.
in. Heroin was rife. All of that, because heroin would clear out your system within 24 to 48 hours, whereas cocaine and alcohol and other drugs like that, which was really readily available, they stayed in your system longer. So guys were actually making, I wouldn't say positive, not positive, but they were making conscious decisions to actually go on and take heroin because they just wanted to numb the pain of being in prison. So I've seen a lot of people talk about how drug addicts and people that have got addictions end up in prison, but actually, there's a lot of people that actually go into prison and come out with an addiction as well. And these kind of things are never spoken about, the mental health side of it.
Yeah.
How
did you manage? How did you feel? How did you cope with that? Because that's something that's come up a lot with people we've worked with, because we've done a lot of projects in shots, which is obviously high tariff. People are on long sentences, 14,
Yes.
18, 20 years. And they talk about that lack of intimacy, the lack of touch, and babies, one of the babies die or struggle with failure to thrive, which is through physical contact. And that intimacy must be one of the hardest things. I mean, for me, just hearing you talk there about your kid, like a prisoner dealing with a kid's visits. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, I get arrested on. I get arrested in December, and I didn't get bail. I was sent. I pled guilty actually, and get sent straight. And I was given the option to go out and bail until my hearing. You could go in and do that. And I actually made a decision in prison that I wasn't going to go out and bail because I knew I was looking at a sentence. So again, it's like I'm saying, you kind of you fix up really. You have to either fix up really quickly or you don't. And I kind of realized, I've made my bed. I need to lie in it, and I need to, do it. So I made the decision not to come out at Christmas to see my family and my kids. And I knew that I had to face the consequences of, not the consequences, but I knew I had to do my sentence. But on the flip side of that, you're going to believe this as well. I'd actually not that long split up from my wife, and she kind of stood by me. She actually brought my son in to see me in prison it was in the open prison during one of the family days. And he can't remember that time, but the fact that she done that for me, those are the little things that get you through, get you past the communication side of it as well. I mean, I always remember, the phone call that I made on Christmas morning to speak to my daughter Hannah. And it was the only time that I would say that I cried, literally, when I went back to my pad. And my cellmate went out, and I basically broke down. And I couldn't show that to anybody else within the prison system, or even my cellmate at that time, because it was that you didn't show that sort of emotion side of it. It was because that again is, I don't want to talk about it as if it was that horrendous, but there is, you don't want to show weakness. You don't want to show that guard. You have to have that. That side of what you do. I'm not a fighter. I'm not, I can't say me. So you want to protect it on that. But I always say to people, I was one of the, I was lucky. I walked into prison and I walked out of prison the same person. And I mean, from my mental health, from actually lost weight, and I got fitter and the rest of it, but actually it didn't mentally affect me from that period of time. It did later on in life, but it didn't affect me there. Whereas I was watching guys literally fall over in prison. I got out my cell one morning, and there was a guy sitting. He cut all his wrists. He couldn't deal with getting into general population, and he actually took his own life 7 days later, because he just couldn't deal with the fact of getting into general pop. And then there was just the drug side of it, the mental health side of it. And most guys that suffer from mental health actually were the guys that were involved with violence within prison. It's kind of weird, because like I said, I'd never been through the system, and so I kind of was looking at it with not a fresh pair of eyes, but kind of like looking at things a little bit objectively and a little bit differently. And you kind of see it, and you know the guys that are struggling, the guys that come off a visit that's, you know, they've had an argument with a partner, you know, you've seen them coming in through the waiting rooms punching walls, and you're just like, whoever's in that cell with you when you go back is going to get a doing. And it happened, you know, you've seen it and you've done it, you know. So it was that all of that was a complete and utter eye opener. That was just, you know. And then there was other things. I mean, I noticed things in prison, like when I went to open prison, like I said about the disparity between the ethnicity when I was in closed conditions, and then when I went to open prison, it was like a white only prison, you know. And I remember having a chat with one of the prison officers, who was actually one of the gym orderlies, and I went, "Where's all the black and Asian guys?" And he went, "What do you mean?" I went, "Well, the closed condition prison is just full of black and Asian guys, and obviously white guys there." I says, "But how come it's not the same mix as what it is here within it?" And that kind of got me. That piqued my interest after I left prison about the disparity and the treatment within black and Asians prisoners within, especially within England, and about getting through that rehabilitation factor and about getting into open prisons, and managing to get through sentence and getting out, is that there was actually quite a big racial disparity when it moved forward into that. So yeah, so it was kind of the prison, and it was a horrible place, and it was a fascinating place as well on the thing, but it was obviously, it's never an experience that I would ever want to go through again.
It's interesting what you
yeah.
said there about, like, I remember we made a short film with one of the guys we were working with in shots, who I think he was on his 18th year, and he talked very articulate. He was one of the writers in one of the programs we were working with, and he talked very articulately about the guys who appear to be making it kind of a pipe and slippers affair, like, it's just jail, it's no bother, and that they were hard. They were the guys that were crying themselves to sleep every night, you know. And that, how that must skew. I mean, we know that male suicide in the UK, probably globally, but the figures for male suicide in the UK are just staggering. And that's men who are outside of a prison environment. So to be inside, to be removed from the things that could help you, support networks, family, partners, you know, nature, etc., must be very brutal. And the fact that there is that code within it, like one of the other guys who we're going to have as a guest, hopefully next time, talked about this when I was chatting to him the other day. He just said, you know, he had a phone call with his daughter, and afterwards he was just shattered. And what he talked about, what he had to do to push that down, to walk back through the halls and get back in. And you're like, how does that come out? You know, like, how does when you do something like, where does it manifest? Like, and
it's brutal. There's you know, I do, you know, you do see a lot of guys that go to the gym. You do a lot of see the guys that get invest themselves into their, you know, in their bodies, and invest themselves into that side of it. And you do see how much a positive impact that has on people. But people, I do also believe that the guys that were doing that, there was definitely that cycle of that they had to do something. They had to invest their time into something. Unfortunately, a lot of the guys that I mean, I went to the gym, you know, and stuff like that. It's quite funny when I think about it, but I made conscious decisions to do things like that because they were all the violent guys that went to the gym, you know. And these were the guys that went out onto the yard and stuff like that as well. I mean, it's a different world when you walk into it. And it wasn't that I was part of that, but what I did was I made sure that I was visible within it, so that it's like, you know, you start speaking to guys in the gym that you wouldn't speak to in other wings, or you would speak to guys that were on your wing that went to the gym, and then all of a sudden you've got a little bit of a bond or whatever. So it was a game. I played a game, you know, and the game was to survive, but not survive physically and to be beaten up, but to survive mentally in order to get through that sentence, to get through where you needed to be. And I remember, I get very when I moved to the open prison, there was a guy that was a lifer. Well, I think he was on about 12 or 13 years he'd done. And I ended up going to the gym with him for about 4 or 5 months. And he said to me, as we got really friendly, actually, and we spent time, that he said that he would never spend time with somebody that was doing a short sentence on the basis that he knew I was getting out. I knew my date for release. He still didn't have his date for release. And he didn't want to associate himself with somebody who knew their date of release, because for me, like you said, you're just passing time, Gerry. He says, whereas me, I'm doing a sentence. So there was all sorts of things like that where I thought about that afterwards. I didn't think about it so much at the time and understand it, but how people deal with it, and it is really, like you said, that it's the first time I've really thought people just push it down. They push it straight down, all that emotional side of it. But I see, because I've been involved with unemployment and, you know, just being involved with certain sectors of the criminal justice and the support mechanism side of it, the ramifications is life. It's not lifelong, but it can be lifelong. But the ramifications is ongoing. It's ongoing, and I'm very lucky, actually, that even though it was a short sentence that I done, I went in the same guy roughly as what I was when I walked back out of prison, and you know, I managed to get myself a job quite quickly. I took a job at McDonald's, flipping burgers, working with 16 and 18-year-olds, and it was for a year, and it was one of the best jobs in my life because I was working. I didn't care where I was working. I was just earning money, and I was being able to provide for my family, or as little as what it was. But I see that struggle. I see it a lot when I speak to guys that come in that have been out of prison 4 or 5 years and they've not been able to get a steady job or a job, and it's the barriers. I always say to people we talk about the ban the box and ticking the box, and you know, the fact that people have to declare that they've been inside and how much of a barrier that is to employment. You know what? Sometimes that's not the barrier to employment. The barrier to employment is the person themselves, and it's about that confidence. People, you know, it's that front people have on. You know, the confidence is gone. You know, just being able to articulate yourself and talk. That's what I love about street cones. That's what I love about what you guys and girls do, is that you talk about that creative side. And well, actually, as much as that's not so much of an interest to me, actually what I do know what it does is it builds up the confidence of the youngsters. It breaks down barriers, that they're able to talk, they're able to communicate, they're able to articulate themselves. And that for me is life skills that they take on as they move forward. And what I've found, especially with Unlock Employment, when I'm working with guys and girls that have been through the criminal justice or doing whatever, it's not about the biggest barrier is just trying to get them back up. It's trying to get them to believe in themselves, that they can get a job, that they can work, that they can do this. And that's the biggest thing that I've learned through my period since I've been out and working. And like I said, I'm very privileged that I managed. I use words like privileged, that you know, that I managed to walk out of prison and get a job, get another job, get promoted, go into employability, have the dream job, become a manager again, work in Northern Ireland, work on contracts, get promoted again, and then have my own organisation. And we're supported, like, you know, within just over 2 years, we've supported nearly 300 people into work. And about 50% of them are guys and girls that have come into justice with the criminal justice system, or they've been into prison. So
let's talk about that, Gerry, because let's talk about that. There's questions coming in, and there's people asking. I mean, just to pick up one of your points, that was an interesting thing. You know, so you did 18 months, and there's people that think, well, you know, I'll do 12 month, I'll do 18 month, I'll do 6 month, thinking that's it, and it's not, is it? That stays with you for life, one way or another. That mark, that blotting book, your jotter that's been stamped there, somehow stays with you. Even in your case, where you've managed to turn it into a positive, and you made positive choices when you were in terms of how you managed yourself through your sentence. You know, going to the showers every day, standing upright, making sure that you contained yourself so that when you came out, you were unchanged and you were able to go back into employment. But it still has stuck with you, isn't it? You know, and
And
so
God, sorry.
yeah, no, keep going. Sorry.
No, I was going to say it's like that's the other side of what I try to do here. What we try to do is that what I found so easy to do, guys and girls that have been through the criminal justice system, they don't find so easy to do that. So there's lots of guys and girls that want to get into work that potentially didn't have a working career behind them or a work history behind them, you know. But then obviously because they went through into prison, they've maybe come out, had a family, or let's not kid on. Life doesn't just automatically stop for everybody. Life goes on. People have families, they have relationships. People want to better themselves, and then all of a sudden there's a brick wall that's there. And it's like, well, how do I navigate? How do I climb over that brick wall to get that job on the other side? There's other things like, like literacy and numeracy. The amount of guys and girls that I met inside that couldn't read, couldn't write. So when you're faced with those sort of, not everybody, but you are faced with that massive barrier as well, when you come out, it's just barrier after barrier after barrier. And what we try and do here is break down those barriers for people to get into that job interview at the other end of it. Anybody that walks through my door,
Oh yeah, sorry, no, go on. Yeah,
I was
anybody
going to
walks
say,
through your door.
anybody who walks through my door and says that they can't get a job because they've been to prison, I tell them to shut up. I tell them to shut up straight away. I said, don't be daft.
Yeah.
I says, you don't think like that. You think, we don't think like that. We try and just don't talk like that. It's not how we talk.
Yeah.
And I'm not a huggy, feely kind of guy like that, but it's like, that's the biggest thing that everybody says. You're never going to work again because you're been to prison.
Yeah.
So when
Well, listen, I've got a question,
like,
I've got a question from someone who's watching on Facebook or Twitter, Kevin McVeigh, who's recently released from prison, struggling to find work. What would Gerry recommend I do? I fancy doing my cards to get approved for working on building sites. So what would you recommend for Kev?
First of all, it's a great, it's one of those things where everybody thinks that every ex-offender that walks out of prison or every guy that walks out of prison is going to go work in a construction site. And I always say to people, great, if that's what you want to do it. Go and get your cards, go and get your tickets, get your CV updated, and apply for jobs, because actually it is a good industry to get into when you get into it. But that's not the only option that's open to you. Your world's your oyster. I always say that to people. There's going to be certain jobs that you're going to be barred for potentially that you're going to go into, but please don't think that's all that's only available to you. I mean, I'd ask them to get in touch with me through my own Twitter. Just drop me a message, and we can, we can just have a chat. Sometimes it's great just to sit down and talk, go through your options. I can signpost to other organisations. I don't believe I've got all the answers. I think there's phenomenal organisations out there locally within Govan, lots of great organisations, and nationally as well. But the other thing is as well is don't give up. Be face the fact that you have to do so many job applications. Face the fact that potentially you may have to go through certain rejections. You have to prepare yourself for it. But then again, if you had a mental health problem, you would have to prepare yourself for the same knockbacks. If you were going for vacancies, if you had disabilities, you were going to have to prepare yourself. It's just the same. I think you have to be realistic as well. But you never give up, because I've never met anybody that I've never been able to get into work. And it's about just putting a little bit more effort into it sometimes. And I don't want to sound patronising when I say that, but it's difficult. It is difficult, and we know it is. But then there's organisations like me and the WISE group. There's lots of great groups that are out there that offer support to people that are looking for work.
Yeah, I got one in from Big Nori on Twitter. He said, "What's the regulations around revealing criminal record to potential employers? I heard somewhere the legislation around disclosure changed recently."
Changed, yeah. So the Rehabilitation Offenders Act, and I sound as if I know what I'm talking about there, which but that changed in Scotland. Actually, that was one of the, without getting all political, it was a great move that was done by the government that actually changed a lot of the disclosures. Depending on what your offence is, it depends on your spent conviction is potentially being cut in half. It depends on what your sentence was previous. The easiest way to do that is actually just go on to www.disclosurescotland.com or .org, and it will cost you £20, £25 to actually pay for your actual basic disclosure. And I encourage that with just about everybody that I work with, because then what you're doing is you're actually getting your disclosure, and it's your disclosure you're getting, and it's a basic disclosure, but your basic disclosure will tell you if it's anything on it, and you'll be surprised how many are actually cleared now because of the change in legislation. But I also use disclosures actually as a positive tool as well, is that because you can actually work out from your basic disclosure, if your offences are on it, you can actually work out on it when they're going to clear. So I've sat with guys and went, do you know that in 3 or 6 months' time, they said if you're not arrested, you're not convicted, you're not whatever, 6 months' time, you'll reapply for your basic disclosure and it's clear. That means you don't need to disclose to an employer that you've been to prison. And all of a sudden, boom, it's just like, and that's the other side of it, is that educational side of understanding your own conviction, understanding your own offence and what it means, because not everybody, but the vast majority of people are like, well, when is it spent? When is it this? But you know what? It's very easy to find out. But sometimes that information is not readily, if you go to the job centre are not telling you that. But yet the job centre are there to support you, to get you back into work. And I'm a big advocate for that. Release Scotland, I sit on the board of Release Scotland, which is an organisation that supports businesses to support ex-offenders back into work. And there's a lot of education going on through Release Scotland with Disclosure Scotland as well, about trying to get that information out as well to employers. Scotland, I do believe, is actually it's not, it's I don't want to use the word pro hiring ex-offenders, because it's not the PC thing to say. It's not the Daily Mail readers will not want to hear that sort of language being used. But one of the biggest stats is about hiring ex-offenders, and is that the sustainability of somebody that you hire that's done a prison sentence, actually keeping them in employment is longer than what somebody is that hasn't been. And that's all down to guys and girls want a job, they show the commitment, and they stay in work, and it's about taking that chance. But for the question, it really is about, again, contact, you can drop me a line, I can signpost you again, but it's Disclosure Scotland applying for it. The other side of it as well is, how do you disclose? When do you disclose? And these are all things that are really, really great questions. And it depends on the vacancy. It depends on the job interview. It depends on what you're going. For myself personally, and what I've always said to people, do not disclose as soon as you walk into an interview. Don't sit there and say, by the way, I need to be honest and tell you that I've been to prison or I've done that. Forget that. What you want to do is sell yourself as a person. You sell yourself as a person. And then if they ask you at any point in the interview at the end, then disclose it at the end. But what you've done is you've sold yourself as the person in order to get the job. Whereas if you tell them you've been to prison or you've had a conviction or whatever, what you're doing is you're putting a negative at the very beginning. You don't want to be doing that. You want to be accentuating all the positives about who you are as a person to get the job. And then if you have to drop that bombshell at the end, fine.
Hmm.
But that's how I've helped more people. I've helped get into work. Have got into work by doing that.
Hmm.
But
It's,
then
I
there's the other
suppose,
side.
putting it into perspective, isn't it, as well, that that is part of your life history, but it's
Yeah,
not. It doesn't
it's not who.
define you. It
No,
doesn't
no,
define you any more than a disability defines someone who's disabled or
no.
someone who's challenged in any other way defines them. So
Yeah,
it's, you know,
it's
it's not that.
that's the massive thing, and it's that's for me is about that change in mindset as well with guys who have, unlike me, been involved with criminality for years and years, and about how do we change that mindset? How do we change somebody that thinks that that's all that they can do, or that they're not good enough to do something else? Now they won't sit and tell you that publicly, but I hear that all the time when I sit one-to-one with somebody, and it's about that confidence building, about, listen, look at what you've been doing here. You're a dad, you're a parent, you're a husband, you're a mother. You've been a single mother for X amount of years, and you happen to get, these are all the positives, and you've been working for so many years, but or you've volunteered, or you've done this, and it's like, my God, that's a part of your life, but it's a part of your life that you want to leave behind, or you have left behind. I mean, it's like the term ex-offender. It's a kind of, it's one of these things that a lot of people are up in arms about, saying, well, you can't call people ex-offenders and you can't do that. And I'm like, I don't care, because it's like, I've been a dad, been a husband twice, I'm a business owner. I've got a British Empire medal after my name now. I've got whatever. They're all tags, they're all names, but I'm just Gerry. I'm just whoever you are, The thing is, I own that. I own that tag of being an ex-offender, because if you don't own it, then you don't move past it.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a
uh,
there's a liberation in that, isn't there, to be able to go to have it out there as well. So while it doesn't define you, and like you say, you don't want to put that up front and center, but it's
no,
still part of you. And by putting it out there, nobody can use it against you. It's not like it's
I,
lurking in the background, waiting to make an appearance.
I mean, for 8 years of my life after prison, I never spoke about it. Nobody knew about it. None of my work colleagues really knew about it. I got on with my life. Of course, there was people around me, my close friends, my boss, a couple of bosses and things like that, people that took it. But it's not like my life it is at the moment, where it is a little bit front and center about the lived experience side of it. And these are all conscious decisions that I made, where I felt that, we need to talk about it in a positive way as well, and talk about employment, and talk about moving forward, and talking about empowering people. That's such, giving people back their confidences, and I'm not talking about what your crime was, but just talking about the fact is, yeah, I've been through the criminal justice system, or I've been through, addiction, and I'm into recovery, and I need to move past it. Great, you know what? That's don't be ashamed, but it doesn't mean you go around with a placard with it. And these are all things that I've learned as I've grown and I've moved forward. As I don't want to talk like that, but they are that's what, for me, that's what life's all about. And everything where I'm at the stage in my life at the moment is about using all those stages in my life, from when I was working in Royal Mail, to going to prison, to working at McDonald's and KFC, and then moving into employability. And prison's that much of my life, and if I can use that much of my life to help somebody, great. But you know what? I'm using that much of my whole work experience in life to help the rest of everybody to move forward with regards to what we do.
Yeah.
So it's not about defining yourself. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Listen, so based on your, I suppose, direct experience of the criminal justice system, but also knowledge of it now, in that on a daily basis you're working with people who are leaving or recently been engaged with the criminal justice system. So what would you say is what are we getting right in criminal justice, and what are we getting wrong in this country, would you say?
I think
Are
what
we
we're
getting
getting
anything
right.
right?
This is where I get on dodgy territory when I start talking about stuff like this. Is I sometimes go against the grain of what a lot of people think. I think we do get some things right. I think there's lots of phenomenal. Okay, let me start again. I've got the opportunity to run Unlock Employment and use the tag lived experience within the criminal justice to support people to move forward and do it in a positive way. I think 10 years ago and 15 years ago, that might not have been the case. I see guys like James Docherty that works through the Scottish Violence
VRU,
Reduction Unit,
yeah.
VRU, using his lived experience in such a positive role model and such a platform that's not being used. And I'll use the word as a poster boy, just like we're not poster boys, you know, and girls. Marie Claire, down in Birmingham, she runs a New Leaf initiative. Again, another lived experience that's using lived experience and building businesses, building organizations, and taking leaps and bounds. And it's all about lived experience. Now, I'm not saying that lived experience is the key to everything, but what we're doing is we're seeing great leaders within those networks, within those organizations that have educated themselves, or they've actually they've moved on with their life, and they want to use it in a better way. And as much as I put myself within that category, it's like, you know, I'm not naive to jump about and just go, well, just because you get lived experience means that you know how to solve all the problems. That you don't. It doesn't work like that. So I think positively, especially within Scotland at the moment, there's an appetite within lots of organisations and within the criminal justice sector. Carrie McCluskey as well. You know, people like that. They're all about embracing and harnessing that lived experience side of it, so that we use that as well as the academic side of it within the criminal justice, because that's massive, you know. Dr. Beth Weaver, you know, at Strathclyde University and things like that within the criminal justice side. And these are all stuff that I've only learned about recently and understanding about the impact of that side of it as well. So they're the positives. That's very much for me. That's the positives, that there's lots of people out there that people can go to that can relate to it. You know, I've not done 10 years, I've not done 15 years, but you know, I know what it's like not to get a job because I've been to prison. Well, that's all I need to know in order to help somebody. You know,
Yeah.
I don't. You know, I've always says to people, I don't have a passion for changing prisons. I think there's a place for prison in society. I don't have a passion for changing conditions within prisons. It's not something that I want to get involved with. What my passion is I want to stop people going to prison through employment. I want to help, because it's what I've seen. It's, you know, within 10 years working, well, within employability since I get out, is that I've seen how helping people into work stops people going to prison. It does. It so does. Stats across the world will show you that works. That's how it works. I think sometimes we labour too much on it, and I think sometimes, but there's not enough direct action in order to support people move forward into work. And that's, again, these were the catalysts that were all about for me to set up Unlock Employment, was to kind of cut the bullshit and just to support people into work. I'm not here to support all the other problems that everybody has because of the criminal justice system. What we're here to do is to help people into employment. It's not about everything else. Whereas sometimes when I see with a lot of the ex-offender programs that go on, or the support things, there's a whole journey that people have to travel sometimes, when everybody that I know, that most people that come to me are just like, can you just help me find a job? I don't want to be doing that course. I don't want to be doing this. Or I don't need to go and do this counsellor, or I don't need to do that. Well, yeah, of course, mate. Come on, sit down. Let's help you. Let's just help you find that job. It's not for me to judge you within the rest of it. Um, and that's where I stand on that. There's other organisations that are fantastic that do all that stuff. It's not me.
I think
don't
that's,
want
I suppose that's where your success has lied. I think maybe with Unlock Employment is that you're not trying to be all things to all people. You've gone, look, we're going to do what we can do here with this.
Yeah.
We're going to operate
Yes.
on this bandwidth. We're going to work with what we've got and do what we can, because to try and take it all on is just too much,
Too
because so
much.
much of it, and we could get into probably a deeper chat than the time allows tonight on the philosophical reasons for crime, but it really
Yeah.
all boils down to poverty, doesn't it? I remember
Of course
we did an event, a National Youth Justice event in Stirling once, and there was a guy over from Norway who was the chief he'd bummer at a Young Offenders Institute in Norway. And he'd worked in the criminal justice sector in Norway his whole life. He was an old guy, he was 60 odd, and he had. I asked him a question: how many young offenders are there in Norway? So Pullman's got what, 400 or 500? Excuse me. And he said we have 7. I went 70. No, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, I said, why is that? So why has Norway got 7 and why have we got 5? If you add them all up, probably up to close to 1,800, whatever, offenders. Norway has a much more egalitarian society. There's no old people in Norway dying this year because they can't afford to put their heating on. They don't have any food banks. We do, So when people are in employment, when people are gainfully employed, or they live in a more equal society where their kids are safe at school, there's no private schools in Norway, because they took a vote on should we have private schools, or should we make sure that all schools are of such a high standard that rich people want to put their kids there, and they voted for that. So rich people invested in the schools. The schools are all banging standard. So rich people don't go, I want to take them out and put them somewhere else. So everybody's growing up, they're gainfully employed, they're clever, there's less need for crime. And so much of crime, not all of it, granted, but so much of it is related to poverty. People make choices.
It's the flip side as well. What we do at Unlock was that I never just set Unlock. My passion with and setting all up is not just about helping ex-offenders. It's all about it's what I call community employability. It's why I set up in Govan. I moved to Govan when I set Unlock Employment up to literally live and breathe to setting this up. And my passion, as much as I don't ever say that I've got this great in-depth passion about just helping ex-offenders. I don't. I just happen to have that little bit of life experience that I've got a bit of knowledge about how to do it. My passion's always been about helping. I used to use the term breaking the cycle of poverty through helping people into employment, and then I kind of stopped using it a little bit because I felt it was just a bit patronizing as well. But there's so much truth in that. I see it all the time. You would not believe how many people that I bloody help that are working. That they come to me, that they're looking for better jobs, they're looking for better money because of the in-work poverty that they suffer. And that for me is just absolutely shocking, and it really does it does my box in. Sorry, but yeah, I'd probably say about 10-20% of the people that I've helped through the last couple of years have all been in work. People that have been in work, people that were working part-time that need to go full-time, and people that were full-time that needed a second job because the first job wasn't paying them enough money in order to do it, or they're in that benefits trap but they're still on universal credit and they can't get enough hours in order to do it. It's just a never-ending cycle, because of the structure and the way that the job market is set up, and that again is really so much about the poverty, the poverty within, government. Look, trust me, we could talk hours about this, but when we went into the lockdown, we had food banks that were set up, and I went to help support with the food banks and all that. And I've had the conversations to say that, you know, why did we take the food banks away? It's not like just because the pandemic's slightly going down that the need for the food banks aren't there. You put a food bank out in Govan every day and it'll be full because people are hungry, because people need those services. And it's the same with the digital side of it. Here, I'm starting to go on a wee bit of rant now, but it's the same with the digital poverty side of it, is that, you know, we set up a digital lending library through Unlock Employment, where we're, you know, we get some, you know, Connecting Scotland and through Govan Housing and through Govan Thriving Places, we managed to get into some funding. That was gone like that. Those devices were gone. The connectivity was gone. I get daily requests to get access to digital devices. And again, it's all for employability for me. You can walk down to Govan Library probably right now and you'll see 2 people standing outside Govan Library using the Wi-Fi, you know, and that's, I'm not saying that that's a necessity, but that's where, if you don't have access to these sort of modern day technologies, like the basics of Wi-Fi, the basics of technology, how are you going to find a job? Because the libraries are shut. All the, you know, there's lots of organizations that they're all opening up now, thankfully. And these all hold people back. These are all the stuff that hold people back, you know. And that's again, employability, getting somebody into a job, getting people into work. And I'm not patronizing it, but that's what it's all about. And that's why we set this up, was just to give people that step up, that little bit of a help in order to make them move forward. You know, that's, you know, I really get frustrated about it when we talk about employability, and somebody actually, when I'm patronizing people that I meet that work within employability, does my boxing, but see, I'm starting to go in it. But they talk to me and they go, well, all you do is you are kind of delivering back to basics and do whatever. And I'm like, listen, that's all people need sometimes. You know, if we can deliver the basics of the support system that's there, we'll get more people into work. And that's what it is for me. You know, I mean,
sometimes it comes down to as basic as putting one foot in front of the other, isn't it? It's like,
yeah,
you know,
of course it is.
That's what somebody needs sometimes.
Everybody, again, that walks through my door, they've all got different needs. Some people just need help with a CV. Some people need access to this, to this. They're not all the same. Everybody's different. Everybody's different. So the support that we offer everybody is different, and it's tailored, you know, right down to what is it that person needs when they walk through the door. I see some people that come through twice and they'll go and get a job. Brilliant. I don't see them again. That's what I want. That's a success for us. I've got another couple of guys. I had Jason that was in yesterday. We've helped him into 6 jobs over the last 2 years. And Jason won't mind me say it because he's a great guy. He actually came in drunk yesterday, but it was his 2 days off work, and he came in just to give me a cuddle. Right, he came in to give me a cuddle just to say thanks for getting me back into work, you know. And that's for me. That's what all this is about. We've got another young boy. I won't mention his name, but he's got a job interview on Friday, and we've supported him into 4 jobs as well. He's 22, and he's a boy that, you know, there's a few of them that I'll make sure I'll do everything in my power to make sure that we get these guys into work, because we don't want them going back into crime. We don't want them going to Polmont, because by the time they're 23 and 24, they're going up to Barrel or they're going somewhere else. And that's when the slippery slope is. That's what it is. So everything about what we try and do is actually not about the criminal justice side, about inside and the rest of it. I've seen it from both sides, and I understand that we need to get people into work, because it does stop people going to prison. It breaks that cycle of criminality.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
And before we kind of develop the conversation a bit further, just to answer, Big Norrie there on Twitter's just taken umbrage at my statement about it's not all about poverty. No, it's not. But I remember interviewing Fergus Ewing up at Glasgow University, who is like a written book upon book, PhD out of his nut on criminal justice around the globe, and 90% roughly, there's always white collar crime. There'll
I was
always
white
be a
collar, so
percentage
yeah.
of it. Well, there you go. But roughly 90% of all crime will be related to poverty in some way or
In
other.
some way.
It's a fact that you can't really escape. So listen, if you could go back and give your younger self, Gerry, some advice, you get a chance to just whistle through the annals of time and go, young Gerry, what would you say?
Don't steal credit cards.
That's a very clear, practicable piece of advice.
Yeah, it's I'm not saying going to prison's defined me as a person and the rest of it. I know the carnage that it caused in my life. I know I don't want to use the words like collateral damage, but Jesus, man, when I went to prison, it shattered so many people's lives and it impacted on so many people that was around me. And it's that's as you get older, you realise that of the impact that you've had. So, but yeah, that's the advice. Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it.
You
Hey, listen, got a question in there. Just got Tam Gillen, who's watching on Vimeo. Have you ever experienced any stigma or discrimination as a result of your time in prison? And if so, what was that like yourself?
I've had it. Just it's all through work. Actually, work and personal life. Actually, I had lots of work colleagues that I've known. That they don't speak to me anymore, obviously, because I went to prison. They just judged me straight away. That was the way it is. I've even had that in my working life as I move forward, that people have judged me on it, and I don't have a problem with that, because that's their opinion of me, and that's just the way it is. But yeah, I've had employers. I've even when I was in work, I found it difficult to get to move on, to get promoted or things like that. I felt I had to prove myself probably 5 times over or 6 times over, or work harder than whatever. But I don't know. Sometimes there's a little bit within me that's also I've went, okay, just do it, just do it. But yeah, it's happened. Maybe not to such a certain degree as what I know what a lot of other people that walk through my door that have been through the criminal justice system. But yeah, I have. But it's
You managed it. I think it was Aristotle who said, without it was a quote I came across the other day, but making it sound like I read Greek bloody philosophy. But it was I like introducing quotes, and it was like the only sure way to avoid criticism is to do nothing, say nothing, and be nothing.
Yeah.
Like criticisms, there will always be critics, there'll always be haters, there'll always be people that want to stigmatize you for something, your football team, your sexuality, your gender, where you're from. Oh, you're from Glasgow. Oh, well, yeah. There'll always be that. So,
yeah, it's I think I never realized who I was until even after going through the prison system and the rest of it. And it's like I said, you're either going to let it affect you, or you're going to put it as a monkey on your back and you're going to carry it for so long. I decided that it was never going to happen. I used it. I don't want to use words like I used it to empower myself, but I actually did use it to say, well, if I can survive that, then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to get this job, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to go and prove to use so and so's that I can run a company, that I can get people into work, I can do this. The amount of I don't want to say that I know that there's on the other side, even like running unlock employment, the amount of people that judge you on the basis of everything about it. And I mean, I remember I went to one employability company when I was looking for a bit of advice just about when I first started this, and I says, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do. And one of the directors of the company actually said to me, "You'll never succeed. You'll never manage it. You'll never do it." And I went, "No, look, this is my history." And he went, "Nah, you'll still never manage it. You'll still never succeed." He says, "Because you're an ex-offender." And I went, "What are you talking about?" I says, "What, you're joking me?" And he went, "Yeah." He says, "You'll never succeed running an employability company just because of that." It's like, oh my God,
Wow.
you work for an organisation that supports ex-offenders,
Mm.
Um,
But
but
some of those people,
he felt comfortable that he could say that to me, and I just was like, you know what? Nah,
yeah.
not,
But do you know
not
what?
going to
Some
do
of
it.
those people are put in your life for a reason, aren't they? Like I had this comes up all the time, but one of my old English teachers, uh, who famously said to me, "The only place you're going to end up, Robertson, is prison." And that has motivated me, because without any foresight on his part, that's where I did end up. I do a lot of work in
Yes,
prison, but I've never been in as an inmate. But
being
I keep,
said, but the amount of youngsters that because I do lots of work with youngsters now within government, the amount of youngsters when you have conversations with the young boys and girls, well, especially the boys actually, is that how common that is. How common that is that they have that built into them, that they feel that at some point, yeah, they're going to get arrested, or at some point they're going to do a sentence, or they're going to do whatever or whatever and whatever. And it's like that narrative for me just needs to change. That needs to, and it's not me going on some power trip trying to say that we need to change the world. But if we got them into a job and we got them into an apprenticeship, if we got them into a little bit of a career, all of a sudden they've got a girlfriend, they've got a car, they're looking about getting their own place. And that's all through earning a wage. That's all through earning a wage.
yeah. No. Quick
Sometimes
question
go,
there from Sylvia Adair on Facebook. Do you think all short sentences should be done away with rather than letting sheriffs decide, and use community sentencing to help break the cycle of offending?
that's a good question. It's and again, it's like I don't really get involved too much in things like this, but there is that whole thing about the stigma of going to prison, and depending on what the offence is on things like that. Do I think the community sentences should be used more? Yeah, I do, but they have to be productive. They have to be productive about what they're doing with somebody. Um, but yeah, prison is such it breaks lives as well.
Mm, yeah. I mean, Sylvia, I don't know if you've seen our film. If you go into streetcones.org, into the roadworks tab on there, you'll see the film that we made about community payback orders. And
Yeah,
certainly a view I think Street Cones would stand behind is that community payback orders are a way of allowing people who have made mistakes and committed offences to maintain family functionality, maintain their tenancy, possibly stay in employment, keep work, while
yeah,
at the same
just
time making up for the crime with some benefit to the community. So
housing is
the
such
housing,
an impact as well. So I mean,
yeah,
I don't want to diminish that. That's sustainable housing, employment. These are all key factors. They go
yeah.
hand in hand. That's the problem. They go hand in hand.
Mm. Yeah. Well, listen, I think we're closer to the exit, but there's some lovely questions here. Is there a person or somebody in your life who's made a huge difference to you or the way you live your life now? Teacher, family member, boss, mentor, someone you'd like to thank that you think actually,
Yeah, he's not going to be watching this. My buddy in Birmingham is going to be watching it a little bit. We had a manager called Tom Goss, um, who backed us to the hilt. Actually, Terry hopefully is watching this just now. Terry will understand this, and these are guys that I had my reputation of going to prison, and Terry was like me. We were all trying to be high flyers at the time, and he was a manager that always brought us back to our feet. But the biggest thing that we got from Tom was that he trusted us and he backed us. And I've kind of tried to take that going forward for me within my managerial side as well, and especially within employability is trust the people that are around you. I do that with Sam that works here as well, and a few other people that have been involved. And it's like you've got to trust people around you and believe in them and encourage them. I've had a lot of good people in my life. I've had a lot of good people in my life. That's the other fortunate thing about me, is that I've probably had more positive role models in my life than negative role models, and that's an influence in my life.
yeah. If you could project 5, 10 years into the future, what would you wish for or envision for yourself and for Unlock employment?
Definitely to be bigger, definitely to be in more places than just Govan. I want to be in Postal, I want to be in Maryhill, I want to be in Easterhouse, I want to be in the community that's, you know, it's not just about the impoverished areas, but that's where the high areas of multiple deprivation and the high areas of unemployment are. I just think, I know, I'll say it, I'm big-headed enough to say it, that what we deliver works, how we deliver it works, and why we deliver it works as well. In community, if you're an employability company out there and you're not working in the community, supporting the community, then you're not doing your job properly. It's as simple as that. That's another big passion of mine. It's one of the. I used to work for the big employability companies, so I've kind of learned a lot of lessons and I've learned a lot of bad things. But the biggest thing is you need to support the community. Support the community, you get people into work, and that's where the highest areas of unemployment is within these communities.
Yeah. If you could wave a magic wand and make one change to the world, what would it be?
It's going to sound a bit cliched, but it's a bit personal to me as well. Is that racism? If we could do away with racism, it's kind of my son Kyle. He's half Indian, and he suffered some racial abuse actually at the beginning of the year, which was we were totally blown away by it. Actually, he was racially abused at school because he was we don't really know. But living in Birmingham for so much of my life, and again I touched on it a wee bit there, just about the inequalities that I saw within the prison system myself with my own eyes, and then actually working in Birmingham gave me a passion for employability, was because I saw the inequality as well about people that were from the black backgrounds, the Asian backgrounds that were struggling to get into employment, and it was so far outweighed other people, and again I see it in Scotland as well. I see it, you know, as much as we tend to think, you know, refugees welcome, and you know, we're a bit of a forward think country as well. I see it all the time, and I hate it. I just don't believe in it. It's just the bane of my life actually. But yeah, if I could make one thing, it would be get rid of racism. I mean, obviously with the Black Lives Matter and the rest of it that's going on in the world, it's prevalent, it's there, but
we're moving in the right direction. I mean, there's so much work to be done, isn't there? And it's a real failure of it's a real blight on humanity that we are still finding ways to denigrate and diminish and sometimes destroy lives based on ethnicity, color. It just seems absolutely ridiculous. That's still an issue, you know.
It's still there.
What was your response to the George Floyd verdict with the copper?
Yeah, I mean that was I use my unlock employment. People don't like it. Actually, I use that sometimes as a vehicle to promote certain of my views as well. And it was guilty. It was as simple as that. And it's, you know, you could like you said, you could talk and talk and talk, but we have to be fighting. You know, whether it's that sort of prejudice is just, you know, it's just, there's no need. I just don't get it.
Yeah.
And that's just, you know, I just don't get it. I hate it.
There's a quick one here before we wrap up. Well, let's make this the last kind of public one we take. Andy Cook on YouTube. Do you have many apprenticeship opportunities at Unlock? Young people in excluded areas need opportunities.
Again, we don't personally is what we do. We've got lots of good links. Again, we've got some good links with some employers. What we try and do with people is navigate them through that field of how do we apply for apprenticeships? How do we get onto apprenticeships? The amount of youngsters that come in, within 5-10 minutes, we're sitting on a job site, we're sitting on the apprenticeship site, we're getting the profile updated, we're getting this, we're getting that, we're downloading the app onto the phone, and then within an hour they're leaving. They've got so many tools in order for them to then go and look for apprenticeships or jobs, and then come back in the next 2 days in order for us to support them to apply for them. So it's just about teaching people what's the best way and how do we go about doing it. I wish I did. Listen, I'm running Unlock Employment literally with no money. I'd love to have apprenticeships working with us. That's the whole plan about what we do is how we grow Unlock Employment. And I need to look slightly different about it because this isn't a revenue generator. It's not. It's amazing that I've managed to survive for the past 2 or 3 years, because it's a cutthroat industry, unfortunately, working within the employability field, and you have to get somebody that's going to either back you, fund you, or you're going to have to try and make some money out of it some way in order to sustain how we move forward. Which unfortunately is why it's just me still that's doing this. I did have a team behind us, but we kind of lost that as we did.
Well, listen, so just finally, always give the guest the kind of last word, as it were. But for anybody who's watching that wants to get in touch with you, and how do they do that? And what would you like to say as a kind of closing statement for yourself?
I think there was another part of there was one of the questions there. What was it? If you could go back no, not one if you could time, we could back. Oh, sorry, I don't even know what it was, but there was one thing I was wanting to kind of talk. There's somebody actually that's watching, and it's talking about the collateral damages, about what happens when you go to prison, and I kind of touched on it earlier. And people talk about, a lot of the time is talking about you as a person, about how that impacts you as a person. And sometimes you don't realise at the time, when I was arrested, my stepdaughter was in the house. I think she was 8 years old at the time. And she witnessed that. She witnessed the police coming through the door, the hours that were in the house. And it's kind of, it's been probably the biggest guilt that I've ever that I've had, that I've, and the damage that done her as an 8-year-old child, watching that had never been, the family was never involved with anything that side of it. She went to school that morning, and I know that it's something that me and her mum had kind of spoken about, and I know that she thinks. So I just wanted to apologise to her, that was something that no child needs to see, and it's that when we talk about prison and stuff like that, it's not just yourself that goes through it, it's other people, and it's and you don't realise that until later on. You know what I mean? No child needs to see anything at all like that within their life, and it's and that's these are the kind of guilt sometimes that you carry. That's not me thinking, but I was really sorry that I had to put it. I've got a fantastic relationship with my stepdaughter. She's a phenomenal woman now. But yeah, these are the things that kind of define you as you go forward.
It's important, I think, to make that statement, because there's a lot of there is collateral damage. For every sentence served, there's a ripple effect, and there's people within that circle that are serving every day of that sentence with you. So
no, I think it is. I think I see it as well, living, and I see it with like I said, I don't get involved too much, but I do see the ripple effects about how it does affect people, not just themselves, but how it affects other people within their life. Generational criminality. You can understand how it happens. You know what I mean? Because it's there. It's just it's surrounding people and all that. But I think it's actually the other side of the impact about when you see things like that, when you see the impacts of things like that happen. But I think how'd you get in touch with me? Social media. I'm very prevalent on Twitter. I've got a Facebook page. I've got a website. Yeah, so please, anybody that's got any questions, just drop me a message. I respond back quite quickly, and I'll offer any advice and guidance. And if you can get to Govan, just come and see me. Just come
Yeah,
and see me.
I can vouch for that. Just by the hub on Govan Road, you can pop in. Gerry's always got a steady flow of digestive biscuits at hand, and cups of tea.
Teas and coffees are always there. Yeah.
Oh, the stuff of life. Well, listen, Gerry, I want to say thank you so much for coming on the live stream and being so honest and so open. And it's been a pleasure. So thank you very much for.
You're welcome. Listen, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I think it's important that we are open a wee bit, not just about it, but just about the positive side of it as well. We have to face the negative side, but for me, it's the positive side. I just want to get everybody into work. That's what I want to do. It's what I help people into work to change their life. It's as simple as that. Or make it better, not change it, make it better. That's the big thing.
Absolutely. Well, listen, thanks again. So that's us. You know how to get in touch with Gerry. We'll put Gerry's links up on all of our social media, so you can get in touch with him or field it to us, and we'll field it to Gerry. But for all our contributors, all the audience, people that put in questions tonight, thank you very much. For people who are interested in any of Street Cone's back catalogue stuff, our films like the CPO film that we made last year, Something to Lose, that's on our website, but you can go to vimeo.com/streetcones and you can see all of our films that we've made. We made a film down in Govan, actually, with some of the young folk that down there, TJ and Barry and the lads. We made it. We got those lads to make Christmas dinner we got a chef, Charlie, involved, and we got them to make a 3-course Christmas dinner for the old people up in Elder Park, and it was just amazing. Watching those young lads who had been dismissed learn how to cook a haggis phyllo pastry and broth and stuff. It was amazing. And then put their dicky bows on and serve the pensioners up at the community centre. It was a big deal. So that film's on our website as well, on the vimeo.com/streetcones. So stay in touch with us via Facebook at Streetcones, Twitter at Streetcones, and the website streetcones.org. And we will be announcing the next live stream soon. But listen, all the best. Thank you. There'll be some music being played by Vox Liminis, a charity partner of ours. So, yeah, thanks a lot. Cheers, Gerry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
see you
everybody.
Later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
1, 2, 3. I never want my children to live a life like mine, so I faced my inner demons, one small step at a time, one small step at a time. I was a boy without belonging, a jigsaw piece that didn't fit. If someone shouted out the answer, then you know I didn't hear it. You know I didn't hear it. I'm not the man I used to be. Gone are the days when all I could see was myself in the mirror, trying to break free, trying to break free. It's taken many years of feeling all alone, so many years of emptiness with no place to call a home, no place to call a home. Now I'm feeling so much stronger as my demons walked away. I think they finally realized they had nothing more to say, nothing more to say. I'm not the man I used to be. Gone are the days when all I could see was myself in the mirror, trying to break free, trying to break free. So many days have passed now, and my life is still on track. And if them demons try returning, I'll have the strength to send them back. I'll have the strength to send them back. They'll never pull me down again or ever cause me pain. I can see a brighter future and it's heading in my way. It's growing brighter every day. I'm not the man